what's going on internationally. How do we get to the place where, you know, Putin decides he's going to just invade Russia? Nothing like this has happened since World War II.
Let's talk about Ukraine now, shall we? Because, boy, the mess continues in that country. And now to the greatest propaganda campaign ever waged against humanity, which is the war in Ukraine. This afternoon, former Russian President Medvedev once again saying that the world is on the brink of World War III, which I say we're already in it. But, you know, really we're already there. But maybe we'll just pull off the nomenclature and actually start really saying that that it's fully, our war. It's fully instead in World War III.
The war that's over there.
We're fully in it, yeah. So here what he's saying, thanks to NATO sending more weapons, the world on the brink of World War III due to West escalating. That's what Medvedev is saying. The world has come close to the threat of World War III due to impending U.S. aggression against the Russian Federation. And specifically, he's talking about Crimea and the coming attacks that are going to unfold there as we send tanks and additional armor. And Foreign Minister Lavrov for the Russian Federation saying no one rightly can call this, quote, a hybrid war anymore. I think he's right. We haven't been calling it a hybrid war for many, many months. It's been World War III on this show. When you have all of NATO in Ukraine funneling and launching weapons against and launching attacks against Russia, what else is it? Like, can you name it anything else? Until you, I guess, have ground forces there, maybe that's when you could officially call it. But in this age, in 2022, 2023, the wars aren't fought the same way anymore, right?
No.
So this is World War III.
And the majority
this is a modern
of them,
World War III.
The majority of them are fought with sanctions. I mean, that is an act of war. That kills people.
Right. Yes, yeah. They're called sanctions of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. In fact, yeah, I was on this weekend. I spent some time with Gonzalo Lira and Alexander Mercurius from the Duran. We had a great conversation. We were talking about this, specifically about the idea of sanctions and how this is a sanctions war, and that's really what it's come down to. And it's failed. The West has failed in that regard, although the Western media is spinning in a totally different way. But
my God, it's outrageous.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
I want you to save your powder.
And just really quick, just to say, like, if you think about the World War, you're talking about World War III. How many countries does the U.S. have sanctions on right now? Like, we are a world war aggressor with our sanctions.
Most of them, yeah.
Right.
Most of them.
So we've got some big updates on massive military weapons heading into Ukraine. New body count numbers that are just shocking. And is Ukraine slipping into a civil war? A lot to unpack in Ukraine. First, why the hell is former disgraced Prime Minister Boris Johnson flying into Kiev yesterday to have meetings with Zelinski again? He did this over the weekend. Watch.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your help.
Notice the Steadicam camera footage here.
You shouldn't have bothered. Oh, dear. I'm too honored. And you do me too much honor, Mr. President. You do me too much honor. You do me too much honor. It is
to see you, Boris.
It is amazing to see you.
Welcome.
How are you? Very, very good. Very, very good. Great to see you. It's an absolute honor to...
We got all our camera crews out here. We got our Steadicams. Watch as they go inside and sit down at the desks. And I mean, like, what?
Where did he think he was going? He said, oh, you shouldn't have bothered. Like, oh, you came, Mr. President. Like, who did he think he was meeting with?
And he only knew he could start talking like half a block away because he was mic'd up with a lapel microphone.
Right. It's all staged. It's all theater. Right. Good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, or a boom mic or something. He's got a lapel microphone on or a boom mic, and they've got steady cams. Like, they got the whole theater production out there for them to show up. Then watch as he walks into they go into the office building. Then they're sitting down at the desk here. You can see them sitting down. And after they shake hands and they're getting down to business, he's got his portfolio. I love that all these cameras are there. But what power does he have to even be there? He's not prime minister anymore. Boris is something of a harbinger because every time there's some kind of talk of peace, Ukraine coming to the table to the end of the war, Boris flies in and torpedoes
with combed hair. Effort. This is also weird.
Well, I think it's just damp because the sleet and the rain.
Look at all the positive stuff Winston Churchill did when he wasn't prime minister. You know what I mean? Like, he still was kind of active, doing some things. And
okay, but he didn't bring peace the last time.
His country.
Maybe. So I think that Boris is something of a harbinger because every time there's some talk of peace, Ukraine coming to the table to end the war, Boris flies in and torpedoes the peace effort. Do you know the word harbinger? Do you know what it means, right? It means a person or a thing that signals the start of something.
It's a canary in a coal mine.
It could be good or bad, a harbinger of things, bad things to come or good things to come. But for Boris, it's a harbinger of more bloodshed. Every time that Boris shows up, peace disappears. More weapons suddenly appear inside of Ukraine. So what the hell is he doing there? He's not prime minister anymore. Meanwhile, a lot of people are dying. A new report from Germany today says that Ukraine is losing three-digit numbers of soldiers per day. That's hundreds of people per day.
In fact, yes, the German Federal Intelligence Service finds this alarming. Now, this comes at a day when the West is everyone's irked by Germany not wanting to continue to send the heaviest, dutiest, if that's a word, weapons. And they're saying, we're a little disturbed by all the dying. We all should be. Yeah. So maybe we don't want to send these Leopard tanks because so many people are dying. There's an idea. Imagine that idea. And that's because all of these weapons being sent in by NATO. And so these people are being turned into cannon fodder. So next to the Civil War part of the story. So that's the German death toll. That's Boris flying in. Now to the Civil War part of the story. Top advisor to Zelinski, Alexei Arestovich, is now out of power. And he's unshackled. Now, you remember Arestovich? He was the guy that told the truth about the apartment bombing in Dnieper about a week ago. How it was Ukraine's fault. He was forced out of office for telling the truth. And now he's spilling the beans on a number of big topics, including civil war, Zelinski. But first, he talks about the failure of the Ukraine military. And in an interview this weekend, Arestovich says it's unlikely that Ukraine will win this war. Now, I apologize. He's speaking in Ukrainian. It's subtitled. I'm not going to speak over him, but I will paraphrase it once we're done playing this clip. If you're driving and you want to hear it later, I'll explain it, but roll it.
Официальное лицо уже, могу говорить, что хочу. Если все думают, что мы гарантированно выиграем войну, то очень не похоже. С 14 числа уже перестало быть на это похоже. Очень сильно. Как вы думаете, оценку от Дуды, от президента Польши, что месяц, и не только он сказал про решающие месяцы, что вообще неизвестно, выживет ли Украина, она просто так было сказано, или он на основе какой-то информации говорил об этом?
So he's saying that, of course, President Duda of Poland also saying that Ukraine won't survive. And it's very unlikely, he says, that Ukraine will survive this, or that they would win the war. Is he
hiding somewhere? Because we know what Zelinski does to detractors.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure he's gotten out of there because he's spilling the beans all weekend. So, talking to the press, and he's not holding back against what he's saying about Zelinski. He also admitted that this is an amazing thing that he admitted. He admitted that Russia, when they launched the special military operation, now he's saying this about Russia, that when Russia launched the special military operation, they found from them that Russia didn't want one person to be killed. He's saying this. He's saying they wanted a surrender with no bloodshed, no one would be hurt. And that's what Arestovich is saying. I'm going to read from the transcript here. He says, they tried to wage a smart war, such an elegant, beautiful, lightning-fast operation where polite people, without causing any damage to either a kitten or a child, he says, eliminated the few who resisted. And they didn't even eliminate them, but offered us to surrender, switch sides, understand, and etc. They didn't want to kill anyone, just sign the renunciation. In another interview this weekend, Arestovich has gone on to slam the political war that Zelinski has waged on Ukraine's Russian-speaking population. Also, the Christian Orthodox Church, he says Zelensky's an idiot for instigating Russia and bringing them to our doorstep, attacking and vilifying ethnic Russians that lived in Ukraine. That line alone really undermines the whole unprovoked war garbage that CNN has inflicted parrot, right? Because he also says Zelinski has declared war on Christianity. Yes. So, I mean, the whole thing has been, it's an unprovoked war. It's an unprovoked war. But here he is, Zelensky's top aide, saying that Zelensky's an idiot and what the Ukrainian government has done has instigated them and bringing Russia to our doorstep. So here is this part of that interview. Watch.
Є такий наратив, хай їдуть в Росію.
Вони і поїдуть в Росію. Або зроблять так, щоб Росія приїхала сюди. І що тоді? Хто ідіот в цій ситуації? Розумієте? У нас дуже нерозумна національна політика і регіональна політика. Взагалі, не національна політика роботи з ідентифікацією. Навіть Радянський Союз краще її проводив, ніж ми. Що в Ізраїлі нема офіційних мов, але друга мова фактично, яка повсюди використовується, арабська, тобто мова їх ворогів. Може, євреї трохи щось знають, розуміють, чого не знаємо ми. Відділяємо. Ми кажемо, що всі росіяни погані і хороших росіян не існує. А як чують нас етнічні росіяни в Україні? Або російськомовні? Що вони чують? Ви вороги. Він достає свій український паспорт, він пригадує двоюродного брата, який загинув під Бахмутом, будучи російськомовним солдатом ЗСУ, і каже, да пошла нам нахер та страна з такими подачами. А їхати нема куди, і він залишається в Україні, але в скритій опозиції до України. Тому що Україна поводиться як повні мудаки зі своїми собственними громадянами. Оце і все, що є. Зеленський оголосив війну християнству. Це коли Служба безпеки зайшла в Києво-Печерську лавру і в інші лаври. В Українську церкву Московського патріархату. Зважаючи на складні процеси, які там відбуваються, і на те, щоб поступово перетягувати, а це завжди непростий процес, перетягувати їх на свій бік.
So how do you pull people to our side when you literally are sending the secret police inside churches and attacking Christianity? Mm-hmm. How are you going to win the hearts and minds of people when you literally treat ethnic Russians who live in the Donbass like garbage?
Right.
He said our foreign policy, our policy
and
is totally unreasonable.
And they say, oh, that's my cousin. That's how he died because of,
This is Zelinski's top aide. I cannot underscore this enough. This was, up until last week, the top guy, the top advisor to Zelinski. And he's the one that admitted that this apartment bombing was Ukraine's fault. And here he is. I mean, this is an unbelievable.
I mean, he did apologize right before. Oh, I didn't mean to say that. I quit then. And now the gloves are off. And he's like, I'm going to tell you what it's really like behind closed doors. This is unbelievable video footage. But a lot of what we have been saying all along, that it's a mess of a platform to support the war in Ukraine right now. What is the platform? You can't even tell.
David, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, unfortunately, this is going to fall on a lot of deaf ears. And even by showing that actual footage of this guy saying it, we're still going to be called Putin apologists. He's probably now a Putin apologist and is now getting a check from Moscow, from the Kremlin, like the rest of us. You know, my checks doesn't come, but I hear it's on the way.
He's a Putin apologist now.
Right.
Literally, yeah. Zelinski. He's Ukrainian and Zelensky's top aide, and now he's a Putin apologist, right?
But I think that anybody who wants to... Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, if I was that guy, I would avoid standing near any windows. I would publicly say, don't stand near windows.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you didn't see a window in that he's behind cement walls, windowless cement walls. But again, the people who would call us a Russian apologist wouldn't really know what it is they're standing on behalf of for Ukraine, other than a media narrative of independence.
Earlier, when I posted the show, the live show, someone in the chat before the show started posted a comment, says, well, about civil war. Well, didn't the war in Ukraine start as a civil war? No. I mean, it started as a genocide. That's what it started as. I mean, that's how it started for the past 8 years, the people of the Donbass being killed on a regular basis, tens of thousands of them being attacked. So that's how it started. It didn't start with any sort of back and forth fighting at all. To me, one of the biggest parts of this interview is when he talks about what's next for Ukraine. He said essentially that Ukraine is coming apart at the seams, a civil war, and will devolve into a civil war where Ukrainians will, quote, be at each other's throats. He says that when this happens, it's game over. Ukraine will be a country ripped apart by itself, ripped in half by itself. But Arestovich has been telling the truth for years. In fact, a newly unearthed interview of Arestovich that I found fascinating this weekend, I wanted to share with you, confirming that a large-scale war with Russia was planned. He says this is Zelensky's top aide, once again, saying that a large-scale war with Russia was planned by the Ukrainian regime, all with a goal of joining NATO at the end of the day. He said this in 2019. It's amazing. Watch this.
Если Украина получает ПДЧ в НАТО, то тогда мы можем говорить о каких-то сроках прекращения войны.
Нет, ни о каких сроках прекращения войны мы не будем говорить. Наоборот, это, скорее всего, подтолкнет крупные военные операции России против Украины. Потому что они должны нас будут просадить в инфраструктурном отношении и превратить здесь все в разваленную территорию для того, чтобы нас неохотно брали.
То есть Россия сможет пойти на прямую конфронтацию с НАТО?
Конечно, Россия, нет, не НАТО. Мы не успеем. Они должны это сделать до того, как мы вступим в НАТО, чтобы мы не были интересны НАТО. Перестали быть интересны, как разваленная территория. С вероятностью 99,9% наша цена за вступление в НАТО – это большая война с Россией. А если мы не вступим в НАТО, это поглощение России в течение 10-12 лет. Вот и вся вилка, в которой мы находимся. А теперь давайте выбирайте Зеленского.
Подождите, теперь если поставить чашу на весу, а что лучше в таком случае?
Конечно, крупная война с Россией и переход в НАТО по результатам победы над Россией.
The coolest thing.
So think about that, right? We know that by provoking Russia, they're going to destroy us. Like, I'm saying this, that's what he's telling you. This is, if we provoke them, the Ukrainian regime provokes them, they're going to destroy us. Because if NATO keeps extending itself and NATO keeps provoking them, they're not going to allow NATO to walk up to their door. And they knew it. He was calling it out.
Well, then think about he gave two scenarios and both of them end up with Russia absorbing Ukraine.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see how he thought that they could win and then join NATO as a shell of its former self.
Right. Well, of course, if you understand now, and this is what we're going to get to next here, is the idea of Ukraine being a shell of itself. It's a perfect staging ground, right? It's a testing ground for NATO weapons, and that's really what it is. It's an empty military base that they can use, and to the tanks now, because that's
it becomes an aircraft carrier right on the verge of Asia.
Right, right.